really popular artist by the name of James Blake recently went viral for his comments about Spotify not paying artists enough royalties. If you don't know who James Blake is, he's a really popular English producer. He's worked with artists like Metro Boomin, 21 Savage, Travis Scott, and a couple weeks ago there were articles everywhere talking about James Blake's comments on Spotify. Spotify's current model is they pay about 0.003 to 0.005 cents per stream. Initially, with him coming out and making these comments, I strongly agreed with him. Even though Spotify can be a great platform for discovering artists, I still think they're not paying enough. And there was actually a large majority of people that came out saying to James Blake, well, why are you complaining when you make all this money? But I think just because somebody is popular doesn't mean they have a good point, and it sounds like what he was doing was he was standing up for the smaller artists. In reality, if you want things to change, it's going to require people of higher status using their voices effectively. Well, yesterday, James Blake puts out a new video and statement, and it's kind of interesting. It says, okay, so for the first time, I'm going to be releasing from my vault of unreleased music. We are launching at vault.fm to show music has inherent value beyond just exposure. Subscribe to unlock.
About a week ago, I went viral with a post about the effects of streaming, because most musicians are not extroverts who are social media and branding geniuses, and I wanted to find a way for musicians to make money directly from the music they make. So after my tweets did the rounds, I was contacted by the makers of a platform called Vault, who are trying to tackle this exact problem.
When I first saw this tweet, I went, oh. I feel like everything started to make sense a little bit more at why he was making those comments a couple weeks ago. If you go to his Twitter, you're going to see that over the last 2 days, he has been extremely active, retweeting people that say they're going to use the app. And in his video, it's kind of interesting because the way he tells the story is kind of like this app approached him in the midst of everything. But honestly, to me, it feels a little more like a PR stunt and like this was planned out from the start. I mean, this app is only following one person, and you probably guessed it, it's following James Blake. And from the way he described it and the way it looks, it sounds just kind of like Patreon. I've seen people go back and forth online, and I've seen people talk about how Patreon has a really bad audio player. And so even though I am a supporter of using an app that's a more musician-focused Patreon type of thing, but my whole gripe with this situation is everybody got riled up because they agreed with the fact that streaming platforms aren't paying enough. And rather than addressing and trying to make changes about that problem, the solution is just to do something that's completely unrelated. Patreon is a really strong platform for larger artists that already have a following, and they can just put their music up on there for people to listen to. That whole subscription model works really great if you're somebody like James Blake, but for somebody like me that doesn't really have a voice, I actually tried starting a Patreon a long time ago and it just didn't really work out. I think I only made about $5 to $10 a month, and it wasn't sustainable at all. And so to me, as a smaller independent artist that doesn't have that strong fan base that can utilize something like Vault, the whole thing just feels kind of worthless to me. People of James Blake's size obviously are going to be totally okay using an app like this, and they'll be able to make money directly from their fans. But me, on the other hand, there's kind of nothing I can do except for just kind of swallow my pride and continue to push out music as much as I can. Now, James Blake himself obviously isn't the cause of the problem, but I just think it's interesting that this whole thing seemed like he was standing up for artists, but to me, it feels a little more like this was to promote this app. He ends up responding to a couple people in terms of how it can be used for smaller artists, and I want to read those to you now. He says, artists, imagine instead of spending years growing a TikTok and Instagram following, you'd been growing a fan base on Vault. You would laugh when a label asked you where your viral song was, cause you'd already been getting paid. This perspective is just not realistic at all. Using something like Vault or Patreon, it's already locked behind a paywall, so it's going to be difficult for it to go viral. On top of that, the whole intention to use a platform like this isn't to put out completely finished tracks, but more to put out demos, because the whole thing is you're supposed to be putting out music that isn't locked into your label contract, or it's just stuff you're making on the side. Somebody responded to this and said, this is good for artists with an already solid fan base. Don't see how a smaller or unknown artist would benefit. And he responds to this saying, thing is, any marketing an artist does in the current market goes to promoting songs they get paid none for, or to grow followers on a platform that doesn't pay. Imagine if marketing/promoting and growing your following actually got you paid. Enter Vault. But again, I'm failing to see how you're going to convince somebody to start paying money to listen to your music if they're not already a fan of you. You're never going to use a platform like this to grow or to become viral or to market your music. Really, what it's supposed to be is a place to put your music that you might not want to use for your already built fan base to consume. But I don't see how this is going to make smaller artists that already can't live off of their music somehow all of a sudden be able to get paid more. This solution kind of sounds like, well, if Spotify and streaming platforms aren't going to pay you enough, then why don't your fans directly give you their money? I don't think that there's specifically any bad intentions. And let's say that you're a medium artist that's already making quite a bit of money. Well, you could use a tool like this to fund yourself even further. But when it comes to trying to make a livable wage for the smaller independent artists, it just seems like this is a completely different issue. Anyways, though, that's all the time I have. And if you want to support an independent artist that's not making enough to live, then maybe check out my song that drops March 29th if you're interested. You can pre-save that below, and that's everything. Peace out.
You know I'm cheaper.